Good afternoon. It is Sunday, 12:30 p.m. on Sunday, April 2nd, 2017. I'm Christiana Ellis. I've been up for a little while, but I was on the phone with family. This is 5 more minutes. So today I am rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender with Season 2, Episode 12. And again, I have forgotten to confirm the episode title before I start. I know it's Episode 12, but it is Episode 12. What is the name of the episode? And I'm going to have it in a second. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. The Serpent's Pass, which is an apt name. Just makes me think of Sokka saying, I thought it would be all twisty and windy, like a serpent. Maybe they misnamed it. This is an interesting episode. I like that it's a little bit of an emotional palate cleanser after the heights of the last one, where we're still dealing with Appa being missing. So there's that. But what we see in this episode is that after the heights of anger that Katara cooled him from last time, he's kind of now, his emotional pendulum has swung the other way, and he's told himself, okay, the anger isn't helping, so I'm just going to pretend it's gone. And it's not even just anger; it's obviously also fear and sadness, loss, and so he's clinging to something the monks taught him, but we suspect that he's abusing it a little bit. He's compartmentalizing all of those negative emotions but he's packaging in even positive emotions with them. He is cutting himself off from all emotion and trying to tell himself that it's the smart thing to do, because it's better to just stay focused on what you're doing right now. And that means even sealing away hope, abandoning hope, like the sign to Serpent's Pass suggests. And we, along with Katara and these Earth Kingdom tag-alongs that they pick up, are inclined to think that doesn't sound right. So that's I think we're not meant to be in Aang's shoes so much as Katara's shoes this time, where we recognize that Aang has made himself emotionally numb, and that's probably not good in the long run. But let's rewind a little bit and talk about where the kids are. So we have Aang, who's acting a little bit aloof, distant, emotionally numb. But the kids are walking, and they're having to make their way over land now instead of, flying, which is, definitely more work. But we see Katara having really come a long way with her waterbending. The show is increasingly giving her a lot of really cool stuff to do with her waterbending, and not all of it is serious. For example, when a waterbending master wants to do a cannonball, she can really do a cannonball. Nuclear. But then, of course, Sokka, in his very pragmatic but long-suffering way, just saying, yeah, let's maybe not splash water all over the 5,000-year-old maps. But then, of course, Katara is able to waterbend the water right out of the paper. Pretty cool. But so they're trying to figure out, okay, well, we're getting close to Ba Sing Se. We're making our way there, and it looks like, hey, the only land route is this really small, twisty bit of land. And but then, it's like saying, well, that's the only way. Couldn't it be dangerous? The Serpent's Pass doesn't sound good. But they're not sure until they meet some other Earth Kingdom refugees, one of whom is pregnant, who immediately say, whoa, you don't want to go to the Serpent's Pass. That's the scary, dangerous way. And but of course, they tell the kids there's actually a secret ferry where you can meet at this one little underground bay, and it's bringing refugees into Ba Sing Se. So great news. Let's travel together. That's good stuff. But what that helps us to do is to bring us in and recognize, first of all, drive home just how many Earth Kingdom refugees there are that are having to go try to retreat behind the walls of Ba Sing Se, because the Fire Nation is continuing to encroach on more and more land. So it's definitely something we see a lot of hardship, and a number of interesting things happen along with that. So we don't have a lot of things happen with Zuko and Iroh. So let's maybe cover their plot line for a moment before continuing with Aang. So Zuko and Iroh we see are on a ship, and it's not 100% clear if it doesn't seem like it could be one of the same ferries, but it's not obvious that it is. We don't see them get on board. We don't see them go through that same sort of customs office in that bay. But we know that the Order of the White Lotus was helping to smuggle them. So it seems they're a little closer into the city than the kids are at the start of the episode. And we get a classic Iroh bit where he is looking upon the walls of the city from afar and saying, "Oh, look, we draw once again on the walls of the city, the site of my greatest military disgrace. Who could have predicted that I would now return to it as a tourist?" And puts on a funny hat and a big old grin. Iroh's the best. But of course, Zuko is, re-persuaded that he should be traveling with Iroh, and he's kind of in a wait and see mood, waiting for something to change and give him kind of a new direction to follow. And unfortunately, it is Jet, who we call back all the way back to season 2, episode 10, who shows up. And it's really interesting because, of course, the Jet we remember from that previous episode was charismatic but amoral, and we could see him being a really bad influence on Zuko at this point, wherein Katara was the one that was initially kind of the most taken in by Jet's, charisma and confidence, but that required deception on his part because Katara, as soon as Katara understood what it was that he was really doing, she had the strength of character and the confidence in her own beliefs to be able to say, "No, that's terrible, you're a monster," and reject him. Zuko, though, is not in a place where he is as secure with what he believes in. And so we could absolutely see him be taken in by Jet's particular brand of freedom fighting. And that we even see that happen a little bit. But what's also interesting to comment on here is that Jet has fewer of his people with him here on the ship. He has Smellerbee and Long Shadow. I think it was Long Shadow, not Long Shot, but Long Shadow. And so he has fewer of them. So we can't help but wonder, where'd the rest go? Are they okay? Did something happen to them? Or did maybe they turn their backs on him? We still see that Smellerbee and Longshadow seem like they have a little bit more of a moral core. Like there's the great moment where Longshadow wordlessly reassures Smellerbee after a little bit of, are you a boy or a girl? That's a weird name stuff that Iroh accidentally hurts her feelings and apologizes, but it's Longshadow who knows her and is able to kind of, remind her that it's like, she, as long as she has confidence in herself, it doesn't matter what other people think. And that's a nice moment between those two. But we're still left wondering, what is Jet's deal? Because he talks about saying, he's done things that he regrets, and now he wants to go to Ba Sing Se for a new start. But what is it that he regrets? Does this reflect a change of heart? Um, does he, was the rejection from Katara and Aang and all of them, did that make him actually rethink some things? Or is it more a matter of things got too hot in that area and now he has to flee so they don't kill him, but he's probably just going to get right back to the same old tricks as soon as he gets there? That's kind of my instinct, seeing him at this point, but we don't get really confirmation of that because the only activities that they draw Zuko into this time are getting better food. And they do, in fact, give it out to a number of the passengers. They keep some for themselves, but, this is not killing a bunch of Fire Nation civilians. This is an easier to defend activity. So we're left a little bit not sure what Jet's intentions are here and what he's really going for, and therefore unsure. Hey, Luna, settle down. Therefore, unsure how bad it might be, excuse me, for Zuko to fall in with Jet. And in fact, actually, my one criticism of the episode is that there is a key conversation between Jet and Zuko that I think ends up a little bit too ambiguous, which is to say, Jet says, as soon as I saw that scar, I knew who you were. Because the thing that had been hanging over the relationship between Zuko and Jet is the idea that, well, obviously Zuko's Fire Nation. And not just a random Fire Nation guy, but big deal Fire Nation guy. So what would happen if Jet knew? Would would he stop liking him and want to hate him? It's not clear. But then this whole bit with, as soon as I saw that scar, I knew who you were. You're an outcast like me. So is that meant to say that Jet does know who Zuko is and doesn't care because he knows that Zuko is now an outcast from the Fire Nation? Or is it meant to imply that Jet is drawing conclusions about Zuko without actually knowing his real identity? He's saying, I get the feeling from you and seeing your scar that you are an outcast like me. I feel like the show doesn't make it super obvious which of those two interpretations is accurate. It's possible I missed something even in my rewatch, but yeah, just watching that scene, I feel like they don't make it 100% clear which of those it is. But I kind of get just from that scene, it sort of feels to me more like he doesn't really know who Zuko is or his backstory. It's more just a matter of, I recognize you on a metaphorical level and I think that we can relate to each other, as opposed to that. Because, of course, Zuko's anxiety is, well, if he really does know who I am, might he, what might that mean? Could he turn me in? What might happen? And it seems like he's relieved a little bit, in a way that I think that Zuko, if he thought Jet really did know who he was, he would be wary even if Jet seemed to promise that he was okay with it. So a little bit hard to say, to know how that's going to be, but now that Jet, a character who we hadn't necessarily expected to see again, has entered Zuko's sphere of influence, what sort of influence will he have on Zuko? Remains to be seen. Zuko is at a very tricky point in his moral journey right now, so, that gives us anxiety, or it gives me anxiety at least on his behalf. So let's now return to Aang and Katara and Sokka and Toph at this passport office. First of all, both this little secret bay and the Serpent's Pass itself are the sorts of geographical features that you might at first have an instinct to say, that seems like an unlikely geographical feature. Or like a Serpent's Pass especially, you look at it and say, like, how would that ever form naturally? And of course the answer is it doesn't have to have formed naturally. This is in the Earth Kingdom. It could well have been talented earthbenders working in concert over a long period of time, building an enormous geographical feature like that. And so, that is my guess, is that that's what they are. And it could also potentially be explained of like, well, this is a fantasy world. We're going to have some fantastical places. And weird rock formations do, of course, form in real life. But my point in bringing up all of this is that even though, like, for a moment I had the question in my head, it's like, that seems like an unlikely thing to have formed, but then realizing, oh, it doesn't have to have formed by itself. It's in the Earth Kingdom. They could have built it, and might have, especially this, this covered bay. But so it becomes a fact of importance that while Ba Sing Se is accepting refugees, they're not just doing it willy-nilly. They want to see passports. And obviously that's something that the Aang and Katara and Sokka are not going to have ready access to. And it's actually kind of a fun detail that apparently people have been trying to pass themselves off as the Avatar in order to get through. And so for this passport lady to actually tell Aang, is like, that's not even a good costume. It's kind of funny. But it's also funny, interesting, and potentially a future plot note that Toph uses her high, upper class family passport to get tickets for everybody. And that works. And, the lady is so enthralled with how official her passport is with the little shiny seal on it and everything. And so that looks like it's really going to work. But then, oh no, the other refugees we met earlier in the episode, including the pregnant one, their passports have been stolen and now they can't get through. Oh no, right? But, well, we want to help them, so the kids are now going to try to escort them on Serpent's Pass. But before we, and I think in a lot of ways, we would have been disappointed as viewers if we get introduced to this idea that this extremely narrow strip of land called Serpent's Pass that's super dangerous, but we're not going to see it. But anyway, but we also get a return of another Season 1 character, and that is Suki from the Kyoshi Warriors, all the way back in Season 1, Episode 4. And that's great, because she was a great character. Again, the Kyoshi Warrior look with the costume and the makeup and everything is just a super great look. I just love it. And to have her show up again in a way that feels natural. See, that's one of the great things about, like, this whole refugee storyline, is that it really, like, it's a natural way to have some of these characters crossing paths again. Zuko and Jet to cross paths, Suki to cross paths with the other kids, and have them all converging towards Ba Sing Se. It's a natural plot world building reason for them all to be going to the same place. And it's a fun detail too that Suki recognizes that they won't recognize her without her makeup, and so she plays with them. It's like, yeah, I've got a problem with you. You're probably sarcastic, and that I don't remember the whole line, but that's fun. It's so great to see her again because she's a fun character. And but then what we start seeing as she agrees to come with them through Serpent's Pass, Sokka is being super overprotective, and it's definitely, it's a sign of his growth that he at least intellectually kind of continues to recognize that what he's doing he shouldn't be, but can't quite stop himself from doing it anyway. And they kind of play it for comedy. But she's irritated enough that she needs to call him out at one point of just saying, hey, look, I can take care of myself here. Like, I appreciate your concern, but come on. You're being a little overbearing. And this all kind of culminates in this scene under the moon, which of course is particularly relevant given Sokka's last girlfriend, Princess Yue, kind of in the metaphorical sense became the moon. So for him to have this potentially romantic conversation with Suki under the moonlight is a great way to drive home some of that dramatic tension he's feeling. Because, of course, the reason for him being so overprotecting is this fear of losing someone again and wanting to protect her, and not knowing what to do with himself when someone he cares about is in danger. And this all actually dovetails nicely with how Aang is reacting to the loss of Appa. It's nice to have these things kind of be thematic echoes of each other. But it's clear that Suki is happy to see Sokka again. She liked him. She's excited to have crossed paths again, and thinking, is it possible there could be something more than just friendship here? And they kind of go into almost kiss, but Sokka can't bring himself to do it, not with the moon right there. And he doesn't explain all of that because it's complicated, obviously. But the idea that he gets at why he's so overprotective, but he still can't bring himself yet to let their connection be deeper yet, because he's still got these fears. But of course, we also have the kids moving forward, and we get in the dangers of the Serpent's Pass, we get a lot of really cool uses of both earth and water bending. But boy, Katara gets to just super shine in this episode. Not only this idea that where there's the part of the past that is now underwater, actually going and creating this little pocket of air for them to walk down through. And it's one thing when it first looks like, oh, she's just doing like a parting the Red Sea thing, but then we realize, no, it's going down far enough that they're actually going to be like a little submarine walking under the ground, and you see a ship go by, and then of course the nice fun bits with Momo chasing the fish. And that's just super cool. And it's also a nice detail that for that one, she asks for Aang's assistance. Like, she's super confident, but, not afraid to ask for help when it's like, hey, this one's really important. Let's do this together. Katara is great, right? She's great. So many great characters in the show. And then also her whole little ice surfboard zipping through the water to try to continue to distract this serpent that attacks them. And, getting everybody through. There's just lots of fun action in this episode. And we get early on the one little foreshadowing detail of, the Fire Nation is controlling the other side of the city really, really carefully, because they seem to be working on something over there that they don't want anyone to see. And of course, we get a peek of that next time, or at the end of this episode. But through all of this, of course, we still have, the other thing I don't want to forget is the little bit of suggestion that maybe Toph has a little bit of a crush on Sokka, and the fun bit of she's starting to drown, and Suki is faster than Sokka in terms of jumping into the water to rescue her, pulls her back up, and then Toph is kind of like, oh, thank you, and she goes to kiss him on the cheek, and then Suki is to say, actually, it's me. And it's like, you can let me drown now. So it's an interesting little dynamic there, but of course, after that is where Sokka is just so impressed by her that he is able to finally kind of move past where he was emotionally and have them actually kiss. But of course, it's tricky because, she's not going to the same place they are. So is it goodbye for now, or hard to know? Interesting. But through all this, of course, we have Katara and Aang talking about this idea of whether or not to abandon hope. And then they're almost to the city. Oh, but the baby's coming now. And Katara is, again, confident, where in having her skills and being able to own it and say, I have assisted Gran with delivering babies, so here's what we need. You go get this, I will help here. Toph build an earth tent, big one. And it's great. She just kind of takes charge, and it works out. And we got a new baby, and they name the baby Hope. And it's something that is finally able to crack the shell that Aang has formed around himself. This idea that it's okay to be hopeful for the future, and to recognize this, like, that doesn't mean you have to pretend that bad things aren't happening, but that there is still value in looking for the good things instead of just sealing yourself off emotionally. So Aang is in a better place emotionally as he um, tells everyone, okay, so now that you're through this dangerous part, you're going to continue on your way towards the city, but I'm going to fly ahead because I want to try to find Appa, start looking for Appa. And when he goes ahead, he gets to the wall, but then, of course, that's where he sees the item that gives the next episode its name, the drill. Boom, boom, boom. And so, of course, we'll be back next week with episode 13 of season 2, The Drill. And I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.